Hi, I'm Christopher Walker with Closely Observed Teaching, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about some of the different methods of lesson delivery in the time of the virus. So, if you're back at school, if you're teaching like I am, if you're in an EFL and you're delivering lessons to your students, what do your lessons look like? There are many different things that have started to happen. For some people, there are face-to-face lessons. We have those at our school. So students are back into the classroom, but with a difference. There's social distancing. The desks are spaced apart. We don't have the horseshoe, that lovely TEFL arrangement where everyone can see everyone else, and it's not like in a mainstream school, the sort of school that many of our students have looked to escape from by coming to private language institutes. We also have social distancing of the room itself. You're not supposed to move around, you're not supposed to mingle, there are no board races and things like that. Some schools and some teachers are delivering fully online learning. Sometimes you might have face-to-face classes for the groups, but online learning for your one-to-one students. That's an experience that I've had recently, and it's generally okay. You know, it plays to my strengths. I'm quite happy teaching these lessons online and then going into the classroom to teach face-to-face lessons after that. Some schools have instituted what they call hybrid classes, where if you have 2 lessons a week in a group, one of those will be face-to-face, the other one will be fully online, the idea being that you're minimizing social contact. All of this sounds pretty good, and hopefully it's helping to keep our students and us teachers as safe as possible and as free of the virus as possible. But there is another ingredient added to the mix, another style of teaching. It takes many different names, it comes in different flavors, but some people, myself included, call it Flexi learning. So what is Flexi learning, and is it as bad as I at first thought it would be? Well, the idea of Flexi learning is that you teach face-to-face in that socially distanced classroom, but you have a computer on with Zoom logged in. And if any students are showing symptoms of something, maybe with a cough or a cold or a runny nose, or if they've been told to self-isolate or quarantine because they've come into contact with somebody with the virus, or if they go to a school that's being closed, like here in Poland, if you're in a red zone, and a lot of the country is now in a red zone, a lot of the high schools and some universities are all closed. So the students have to go home. Should they then go to their private language classes? Who knows? But to play it safe, many are opting to stay at home. And to keep those students involved, we have these Flexi lessons. So like I mentioned, you're in the classroom, you're teaching face-to-face with some of the students, and those who can't make it join the Zoom session that you have open, and you try to integrate them into the class as much as possible. Well, when I first heard about this, and I heard about it by reading the International Health World Organization blog. They actually have a blog. I used to many years ago, but this one is pretty good. I read it pretty regularly. They announced that some schools are going all in on these Flexi lessons. 1 or 2 schools have even invested in large screen flat panel TVs to go around the classroom so that the students who are there and the students who are on Zoom all have a presence and they can feel that presence and share it. And I thought, oh my goodness, think of the technical nightmares associated with that. I was also thinking that's going to result in a huge amount of extra preparation time. I'm going to have to make sure that every lesson that I deliver takes advantage of the technology in some way. Does that mean I need to make a PowerPoint for every single lesson? That's going to kill me. I have so many lessons to teach. I can't do that. It's just not sustainable. I thought about the other overheads. How are the students online going to hear me if I'm moving around the classroom? We've got laptops set up. Zoom's running on the laptop. The webcam has a little microphone built in, but these microphones on laptops are only designed to capture the sound from about 1.5 meters in front of them. That's the idea. They're not designed to capture the sound of a whole room, to get the students' sounds, their voices coming into the computer. I started thinking, am I going to have to go around with a lapel mic, a lavalier or something, connected somehow to the computer? What if I trip over the cable? What if I have an accident? I could really do myself an injury. So I started really worrying, and then it just got worse for me. I came across an article written on weareteachers.com by Julie Mason. You can see it here, and there's a link in the description below. Now, the concerns that she was sharing seemed pretty legitimate. She was talking about this situation of hybrid classes, as they called it, Flexi for the rest of us. She was talking about it with the people she knew in mainstream education, and yeah, it sounded like a horrible thing. You had these students in the class, you had students at home, you had to teach them both at the same time. Surely that's 2 classrooms. 1 teacher, 2 classrooms. How would anyone ever manage? And reading this post, it really struck a nerve with me. I thought, yes, this is exactly what I've been thinking. And then I started thinking I should tell people, I should tell other people, other teachers, this is what's coming. This is an existential crisis for us as teachers. We're suddenly being asked to teach double, but we're only going to be paid the same as if we were teaching 1 class, and we're not going to have extra preparation time. It's the end of the world. But fortunately, I had time for quiet reflection. It might help that recently I've taken to reading the letters of Seneca. It might not, that might just be a complete coincidence, I don't know. He's a good writer, by the way. If you ever get the chance to read a modern translation of the letters of Seneca, do it. It's full of wisdom and a bit of wit as well. But anyway, I started reflecting and I thought to myself, well, you know, this whole virus situation, the lockdown, the eternal worry, it's not going anywhere soon, is it? It's going to be here for us for this school year, at least, maybe longer. Most of the Western world is not doing a good job stemming the flow of the virus. There are countries that represent success stories. Japan pretty much, South Korea certainly, Vietnam, maybe Uruguay in South America. New Zealand is a famous good example. But then you have places like Great Britain. It's really been bad there. You have Spain, Italy and France. The numbers are growing and growing. In Poland, I thought the whole thing had passed us by. The first wave was fairly flat. Not much happened. We had the lockdown and that seemed to do the trick. But recently the numbers have been climbing rapidly. So there is something going on. And when we first announced this idea of the Flexi classes, the idea was that a student who needed to isolate would miss 1 or 2 lessons. So it didn't really matter too much if they were passive participants, if they just sat at their computer screen for an hour and a half and watched as the rest of the lesson unfolded. But that situation too has changed. With high schools closing around the country, high school students shouldn't really be going to their private lesson classes. If they feel safe enough and if the school agrees, then maybe they will. But if there's a reason for the closure, maybe they need to think twice, who knows? And that means that these Flexi classes might become more of a thing. More students might be there than at school. So we have to have them. We have to have something. Either we close completely and we go all online, and I don't think any of us really want that. I don't think I do. After a couple of months teaching online, I started to quite like it, in a sense. What I didn't like was sitting in this very chair from 9:30 or 10 o'clock in the morning until sometimes 8:30 at night with only very short breaks. It was exhausting, staring at a little square on my screen where the students were hiding. Sometimes they'd have their phone, if they were on a phone, flat on their desk, pointing up at the ceiling, so I got to see the texture of the paint job that their parents had done. I missed that social connection. I missed being at the school and seeing the other teachers. And if Flexi lessons are the way that we can allow that to happen, that we can allow our teachers to be at school, meeting our students and getting that essential social nourishment, maybe we need to start looking past the negatives. And I'll be the first to admit, I was negative about this, too negative. But I reflected on my negativity, and now I'm working to change it. And that's why I'm making this video, because I want to show you that it's possible to change that negative attitude, that negative approach, and make it into something more positive. You just need ways and means. First, we need to think about who benefits from such things as Flexi lessons compared to the alternatives, which would be to stop students from coming to school if they have any symptoms of anything. And we are talking about anything here. My daughter in preschool has missed the last week and a half because of a blocked nose. She's not got the virus. I'm certain she hasn't got the virus. I've been absolutely fine, and she's not really had a fever or any of the other symptoms. But we don't want to risk sending her to school where other people will say, oh, she's showing symptoms. So she's been at home all this time. I don't want her to miss out on everything, and I don't want my students to miss out on everything. So if they don't feel welcome, but we still have face-to-face lessons, what are we to do? So who does the Flexi system benefit? Well, first of all, it benefits the school. The school stays open. That's pretty important in this time. To see a healthy business continue in this sort of environment, we need that sort of thing to happen. The virus has already claimed victims. A number of businesses have gone out. You only have to look at, again, the International House World Organization blog and their Twitter feed and their Facebook page, and you can see one or two sad tales out there. We don't want to follow that. So we have to do what we can to help our schools. And if that means challenging our negativity, I'm number one for that. If we challenge that, then we can do something positive. And of course, for those of us like me who are married with children, we are heavily dependent on our schools. We need our schools to survive, if not thrive. And being positive about this is the first step in that direction. Who else do Flexi lessons benefit? Well, obviously they benefit the students. If the alternative is no lesson at all, a Flexi lesson is by default better. I'll come back to how we can make it better than nothing in just a moment. Okay. And the last group that it might benefit are the teachers themselves. Now this goes against everything that I thought Flexi lessons were and all the things that I detailed at the start of this video. I was determined to be negative about this. You can't expect teachers to teach 2 classes at once. You can't expect us to manage all of this. Well, yeah, but nobody chose for us to have this virus. It exists. It is the situation. So we need to deal with it. And the best way to deal with it is to adopt the sort of positivity that you will see on a daily basis coming out of, well, if you need some, go on Facebook and look up Mark Andrews in Hungary. His Facebook feed is just positivity, positivity, positivity. There's Tom Jones also on Facebook. He is a great figure for this kind of thing. There are people out there that we can turn to get that positivity, and we can spread it. We can start to be more optimistic about the jobs that we have chosen to undertake. So it can be a benefit to teachers, but we can also see it as a benefit in the long-term creation of content that is recyclable. We will learn digital systems that we can take forward into all of our lessons. We can use the same systems from one session to another, thus saving time in our preparation, and we can then refine these things and make them better. So let's go to the key question of Flexi lessons. You have some students in the class and you have some students on the computer on Zoom. Who are you meant to teach? Are you meant to teach the face-to-face students, or are you meant to teach the ones on the internet? Who do you prioritize? Should you give the people who were able to come to the class the bulk of your attention and let them suffer what they can on the internet, or the other way around, or do you try and get 50-50? There's so much to think about, but for me, the solution I hit on is to treat every lesson I teach that is a Flexi lesson as an online lesson. Let me explain what I mean by that. Think about it this way. You're doing a face-to-face lesson, but it's got social distancing involved. The students are there, but they can't stand up, they can't mingle, you can't do find somebody who activities, you can't do board races, you can't really do the sort of activities that involve getting the students to call out, raise their voices. That will spread whatever it is that they might have, hoping that they have nothing. We need to temper our approach to the situation. So if you treat the whole class as online and run everything as if it were online, then you solve a lot of the problems that you would face. So whenever you're doing something on Zoom, if you want to use the whiteboard, do a share screen on Zoom. You'll find actually that this helps your students a lot. Hands up if you are a teacher with pretty shoddy handwriting. Guilty. How do you solve that problem? Type everything. You don't have to get up and use a pen and penicillin like a doctor. What does this say? Get Zoom, do the share screen, type onto the whiteboard. The students at home will see it, the students in class will see it, and everyone benefits from that. If you have interactive course books, share the screen on the course book so that the student at home can see it, as can the student in the classroom. Even if it's just a PDF or a photo you took on your mobile so that everyone can see, do it that way. And it really helps center attention. It centers attention on the content and not on the teacher, and you're making space for the students. Coming back to that Julie Mason article, she talked about how the frontal approach of teachers standing up and sermonizing in their classes has returned. We don't want that to happen. We want our students to be at the heart of what we do, and this approach will ameliorate that problem. So make every class an online class and start to build what you do around that. And I'm going to show you an example in this video. I'm going to give you something that you can take away and use in your own classes starting tomorrow. Okay? And it all revolves around the WISE application of some of the Google Suite and a couple of other websites that you will use in a system and then reuse and reuse. So to give you an example, I had a Flexi lesson recently, A2 level preteens. Fortunately, all of the students in the class had a mobile device. They all had their smartphone, and we have opened up the use of Wi-Fi in our school to our students. I think that was a great decision on the part of the school. In the past, we always kept the password hidden, it was secret, but now we've shared it, so anyone who needs the Wi-Fi can have the Wi-Fi. And I'm hoping we're going to take down the posters that say no mobile phones. We need them now. Every lesson is online. Even if you're face-to-face, you need that digital device if you're a student or a teacher. So I wanted to do one of those share your opinion surveys. So typical of this level. We'd been looking at hobbies and sporting activities. Now normally I would get them to do a little form with some questions and go around and ask every student. So it's a mingle activity. Can't do that. Social distancing. And we've got a student on Zoom. But what we can do is set up a Google form, as you can see here. So we have Google form. We set it up collaboratively amongst the students. I would ask them to tell me the name of a sport, and I'll type it in just there. Then I'm setting up a Likert scale on the side, running from I don't like it to I hate it, sorry, to I love it. So we've got the 5 grade Likert scale. Fill it all in, do a little bit of customization, get them to choose the picture that they want, or if you don't want a picture, you can get them to choose the color scheme, you can get them to choose the font amongst a small selection. Great. Once it's all ready, click share at the top and you get the link. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky, but once you've done it once or twice, it's fine. First of all, you can take that link and you can paste it into the chat in Zoom and send it off to the students who are at home. They can get cracking. They can start filling in the Google form with their answers. But for everyone else, you need them to be able to type it into their phones. So what I've done is I've copied that link, I've gone to bit.ly. So I have a bit.ly account, it's free. You log in, you paste the long Google Forms address that you've been given, and you get the shortened version. There are other approaches. You can use QR codes if you've got that sort of thing. I find that you can never guarantee what the students have got on their phone, whether or not they'll have a QR reader. So that's something to bear in mind. I use bit.ly. However, there is a small problem with bit.ly, and that's that they use lowercase l's, uppercase i's in some of their shortened links, and you can't really tell what's what. So I'll copy that link from bit.ly, I'll go into a Google Doc, paste the link there, pump up the size of the text and change to a serif font so you can tell the difference between a lowercase l and an uppercase I. And because it's now bigger on the screen, the students in the classroom can see it. Brilliant. Give them a few minutes to copy the address into their phones, get them to fill in the form, and when you're ready, go to the Responses tab in the Google form. So what I did in my class was I set up the structures that we wanted to give feedback. Remember, this is A2, so they need lots of drilling, lots of repetition. So I got a couple of model sentences. 5 people love basketball. 3 people say basketball is okay. Stuff like that. And then I went from student to student, going around the class, and then to Zoom to the student there, and then back around the class to Zoom, back around the class to Zoom, getting them to tell me the results from the survey. So we went through each one. We've got the bar charts there. The students in the class can see it on the board. The student at home on Zoom can see it on their screen, and they can produce this language, and it's pretty interactive. It's not as good as it would have been a year ago, but we're not living in that time anymore. And we need to find the ways to make things work. This is one of them. So we went through it, and it really seemed to work. The students got better at all of this, and the students were all involved. The student on Zoom was almost as involved as the students in the classroom. And it got me thinking, you know what? And these can serve as my closing thoughts. I mean, I've been going on for 20 minutes. It's about time I wrap things up, isn't it? I can never say things concisely. Sorry. So I thought, yes, these Flexi lessons are going to be tricky. It's going to be hard work managing students. At the start, it's going to involve more work. But over time, the amount of work is going to be reduced. We'll learn these sort of patterns. Google Forms, make the survey, copy the link, go to bit.ly, copy the link, go to DOS, paste the link, change the font, make it bigger. Do all of this and you've got a workflow that you can repeat. With more proficient students, you can get them to make the Google form. There are lots of things that we can do. And you know what it made me think of? It made me think of March. March, we went online. We took all of our classes online like that. We didn't have the time to really reflect on what we were doing. We didn't have the time to think very carefully about how we were going to do it. At the start, all we wanted to do was get online and keep going. And we did. And over time, we got better at it. We got more proficient because we had more experience, and we reflected on that experience, and we listened to our students when they said what worked and what didn't, and we listened to each other. And that is kind of my closing thought, the conclusion. And that is that we need that positivity that I talked about earlier. I need it from you. I want it for myself, because I'm not a naturally positive person. I am a negative person at heart, and I want to be positive. So, need it from you, and we need it from each other. So, find the other people out there, find the other teachers, form little communities online, share your ideas. I would love to hear your ideas for how you would make this sort of thing work. Write them in the comments below. If you've got a link to your own channel, your own videos, your own Twitter feed, your own Instagram, where you show how these things work, share those links and post them below. I can't wait to see them. We're in this together. You, I, we're all in it together with our students, with our schools. And if we work hard and if we remain positive, I reckon we can make a real success of this. We can at least try. And at the end of the day, trying counts for a huge amount right now, and I'm sure our students will feel it when things start to go back to normal and they wonder what they're going to do to help progress their education and to build their skills. They'll be thinking to themselves, well, what did my school ever do for me? Oh wait, they did everything they could. The teachers worked as hard as they possibly could to make sure we had that continuity of experience so that we didn't fall too far behind, and they cared and they were positive. There we go. Can't ask for much more than that. And that is all I've got for now. If you found any of that useful, like, subscribe, usual things. But most of all, stay positive.